The return of truly top tier content, the creation of a fan favourite character, the saviour of Cold War zombies. It's no secret that up until the arrival of Mauer Der Toten, the world of Cold War zombies had been very polarising with fans. Lacklustre Easter eggs, simple boss fights and controversial new open world modes had pushed away many long-term players, while newcomers often appreciated its combination of undead slaying and more modern gameplay mechanics. But one thing that the vast majority of the community could agree on was that Mauer Der Toten was a true return to form for Treyarch, leaving us with one question: what exactly made this map so good? Coming off the back of two experiences that in the eyes of many really missed the mark in terms of atmosphere and visuals, it was time for Treyarch to go back to the drawing board and give fans one of the most truly creepy and unnerving zombies experiences for years, and that is exactly what they managed to do with the incredible Mauer Der Toten. It's immediately obvious upon loading into the map that the devs got everything right when it comes to atmosphere, because the nostalgia hits you like a truck. The classic old school round jingle, and just like that you know you're about to jump into something special. Even from the rooftops of this war-torn Berlin building, the incredible visuals are already clear to see, giving you slight hints in the distance of the horrors you're about to witness as you uncover Mauer Der Toten's secrets. The incredible vibe and feel of the map only deepens as you explore the streets and cast your eyes over the destruction of the area and get an even closer look at what appears to be a demonic ritual lying just out of reach. In order to fully understand what lies just beyond the wall, players have to enter the subway, and this is where the dark and unsettling nature of this experience is taken to the next level. Shadowed tunnels and murky sewers serve to lead players on their way back to the surface, but I think the most intimidating sight could well be something much more unexpected. The flaming train that hurtles past, filled with the cries of the damned, is phenomenal. It's not often we get anything as incredible as this when it comes to visuals in COD Zombies. All of this is capped off in a pretty breathtaking way as you emerge from underground into the Pack-a-Punch area and finally uncover the horrors of what could be seen from spawn. This is the first glimpse of a truly creepy enemy, the Disciple, who we'll talk about a bit more in depth shortly. And this encounter really feels like the final piece in the Mauer Der Toten puzzle that showcases to players exactly what they're part of and truly feels like something amazing. There is no doubt Treyarch 100% hit the mark with the map's atmosphere. It's not very often they manage to create a vibe this incredible, but they should absolutely be applauded here, as not many experiences can compete with what's on show in Mauer Der Toten. The devs absolutely need to get the creepy, eerie nature of the experience right, and this map is a great example of how you hit the nail on the head. It doesn't end there though, because the layout of Mauer Der Toten helps to complement the mood on display absolutely perfectly. It can often be extremely tough for a team of developers to find the right balance of play spaces in a zombies experience, but this map smashes it out of the park. It offers fans a variety of different areas depending on their play style: wide open areas for training, more cramped hallways for close quarters, and straight up campable rooms that can get pretty crazy very quickly. And luckily, all of these different sections are linked very well. There is the chance that Mauer Der Toten can feel overwhelming at first and even slightly complicated, but once learned, it's clear that the map is fantastic, often forcing players to transition through various different types of play space when wanting to accomplish different things, which of course completely changes how you need to play. Now obviously all of this is very important, but it's nothing without a smart and easily understandable way to traverse the map, and luckily this has that in abundance with its zipline system. Without these fantastic transport routes, Mauer would no doubt be a bit of a chore to navigate, particularly getting from one rooftop to another, but luckily all of this is solved for us. Essentially, all major important areas are connected together via the system, meaning that no matter where you're looking to play or what style of game you're going for, if you need to switch things up quickly, you can do that with absolutely no hassle. I do however have one slight reservation when it comes to the verticality of the experience, and that is the ascending ziplines. Don't get me wrong, this could well just be a me problem, but these things seem so delayed when jumping on them. I've even taken hits due to the extremely slow animation. It doesn't really seem to be an issue with the horizontal version, but my god, it feels like this version takes forever. But even with that said though, the overall system is fantastic and the perfect way to link various sections of the map in order to create an easily accessible experience for fans. Even with these incredibly huge positives, I think we can all agree that it could come crashing down if the map's wonder weapon is really not up to par, but luckily that definitely isn't the case here. The Zombies community was in good hands with the amazing Cerberus, the conversion ready binary repeater standard. Sure, not the best name when read out like that, maybe we'll just stick with Cerberus. This thing is a 100% badass piece of kit and can luckily be collected from a very simple side quest, guaranteeing you'll get your hands on it without having to spend a fortune on the unforgiving mystery box. Strangely, the base level Cerberus is realistically the best, with it acting like a laser pistol accompanied by a secondary fire coming from the glowing orb. This version absolutely shreds through zombies, and although it may not be the most OP wonder weapon of all time, it's definitely up there and has to be the primary way for destroying the undead in Mauer Der Toten. It is of course not the only version of this crazy weapon available to fans, with 3 others up for grabs through various mods. I'll discuss the exact method for this a little bit later on, but for now let's touch on the Swarm variant, as this is definitely one of the stronger ones available. Literally locking onto enemies and wiping them out in an instant. Outside of the base variant of this weapon, this is realistically the one that most people will go for because it's so powerful. Tragically, the other 2 mods aren't on the level of this banger, with the burst and laser rifle versions not being anywhere near as useful. With that said though, they do at least look incredible and provide a very different way to take on the Horde. It's just unfortunate that they aren't slightly more powerful. Interestingly though, the laser mode may be weak, but it's pretty important when it comes to the map's Easter egg. It's no secret that in the world of Cold War Zombies prior to the arrival of Mauer Der Toten, the community was dealing with some pretty weak and unchallenging Easter eggs. Fortunately, this incredible map was here to change that. With this experience, Cold War finally had a main quest worthy of the historic legacy of zombies. Okay, perhaps a bit of an exaggeration, I'm not sure we can put this on the level of the Black Ops 3 greats, but there is no doubt that compared to the rest of the main quest content available in this game, it was a huge step up. The Easter egg is full to the brim with genuinely interesting steps, from upgrading Klaus to stopping the train and transporting uranium. It's not necessarily outrageously challenging, but it's clearly more difficult than both Die Maschine and Firebase Z, which is a huge positive, as myself and many others still believe that they genuinely missed the mark. I've also got to touch on the use of the Cerberus laser mode to reveal the secret lab. That is such a cool addition to the map that realistically didn't necessarily need to happen, as we saw with previous Cold War Easter eggs not really allowing players access to any additional areas. But I'm so glad they included this, as it looks phenomenal and was of course also very important when it comes to the map's final boss encounter. A huge round of applause for Treyarch. This is how you make a return to form with a COD Zombies boss fight. Run it back just a couple of maps and things were not looking good, with Die Machine's final phase not even really being a proper boss, along with the fact that it was nearly impossible to fail. Couple that with the Order from Firebase Z being a simple spray and pray exercise, and understandably the Zombies community wasn't holding out much hope for what they'd receive in Mauer Der Toten. There is absolutely no way I could be disappointed with the Valentina boss fight though. It's exactly the kind of thing I look for when taking on a COD Zombies experience. Appropriately challenging, learnable steps and attacks that reward you for patience and knowledge, and various stages ramping up the difficulty before an awesome final climax. Although it's not an entirely new boss fight area, I'll let the devs off here due to it starting and ending in the secret lab, which is not part of the normal play space unless you're doing the Easter egg. The movement around various areas of the map is also a cool addition too, making the encounter feel fresh at various points and also helping to keep the pace up. And this impressive final boss reaches its crescendo with an amazing sacrifice from Klaus that is done in the exact perfect way you would expect from this character. Although that may be the final appearance of this famous guy, we need to talk about him more in depth. If you told COD Zombies fans prior to the release of Mauer Der Toten that they were going to be getting another hireable NPC style bot, I can't imagine they'd have been particularly excited to hear about it. However, if they'd have known it would be as good as Klaus, then I'm pretty confident that they would be feeling massively different. Never before or since has an in-game protection robot had this level of personality and been so heavily involved in the story of the map. Before, that always just felt like small gameplay additions that often acted as a mini side quest and honestly weren't even really that useful. Now, I'm definitely not saying that Klaus is some ridiculously overpowered sidekick who's going to take you to high rounds, because that's absolutely not the case, but that's not really the point here. This character is so much more than that due to his attitude and personality. He provides some much needed comic relief in what is clearly a very dark and grim experience. But these aren't just some terrible jokes out of nowhere, this guy is genuinely funny.
You need to keep me safe, even if it means your own death.
Does anyone else feel a draft? I am not sure.
I have no skin. I feel depressed. None of you know how that feels. Did you have dolls as a child? Maybe you should have. I usually follow orders, but that one seems stupid.
Add on to this the fact that he's not just some basic dude, he can even be upgraded to make him stronger and accessible more quickly. And don't forget that he just ends up looking even more badass, which is always a positive. As mentioned too, this guy is pivotal in Mauer Der Toten's Easter egg, which is not something that COD Zombies fans see very often. And it seems fair to say that over the years he's left a huge lasting impression on many players, including myself. With this absolute legend being pretty useful, he can even help you take down the new enemy of the map, the Disciple. Although they would of course be added to Outbreak later down the line, this was their initial appearance. We touched earlier on the fact that your first glimpse of them can be found upon the arrival at the Pack-a-Punch machine, but following this you will be seeing these guys a lot. Now normally I may consider this a bad thing when there is a complete overabundance of a special enemy, but you know what, it kind of works here. Luckily they are essentially the opposite of bullet sponges and so don't last too long. Whilst they are around though, Disciples do actually offer some very cool and unique mechanics, buffing enemies from a distance in an attempt to cause you some problems. The only time they really directly affect the player is when you get too close and they will slowly begin to drain your life away. But their main goal is more of a zombie support role and it does actually work really well. They don't feel like a chore to dispatch, but also feel like a threat that really does need to be eliminated or you'll be forever fighting buffed enemies. Thematically they definitely fit well in Mauer Der Toten 2 and serve to improve the already amazing atmosphere and vibe. Many COD Zombies fans including myself are in agreement that this map is right up there with the greats. But as incredible as it is, it doesn't mean it's perfect, and although the list of downsides may not come close to its positives, it's still there waiting to be talked about. I have made it pretty clear where my opinions lie in terms of the map's visuals. They're amazing, it's that simple, but they're certainly not perfect. On the surface everything looks great until you look a little bit closer. Certain other Zombies YouTubers have pointed out over the years that the background assets of Mauer Der Toten are really not up to par, and I have to say sadly I think they're totally right. Although they don't spoil the experience, if you do actually take a closer look at them they're genuinely quite poor and do not meet the high standards of this great map. It really is a shame that more time and effort wasn't spent on this aspect of the experience because it does hold it back somewhat and can take away from the realism of Mauer Der Toten if you take the time to cast your eyes beyond the obvious borders of the play space. Although that issue could well boil down to a lack of time, other negatives are a little bit more frustrating. I've already made my opinions known that the 4 Cerberus wonder weapon variants available in Mauer Der Toten are brilliant. However, I've got to say the process to obtain them is not. Collectible wonder weapon mods dropped by zombies upon elimination is certainly a unique mechanic, so I won't hold that against the devs, but its implementation leaves a lot to be desired in my opinion. I would have personally preferred mini quests to unlock all 4 of these variants and then have the option to choose your favourite. Sure, the droppable mods are easier to get hold of, but that whole idea falls down on the fact that once the ammo runs out for your current one, it literally just disappears and you go back to the base Cerberus. So if you have a favourite or one you particularly want to use, you could be waiting to get hold of it or constantly losing it and have to recollect it, which in my opinion can be really annoying. It's a genuinely strange design choice in my eyes to repeatedly give you various versions of a wonder weapon and then take it away from the player. And things don't get any better if you stick the Cerberus in the Pack-a-Punch machine either, because this camo is just really not good. Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not the biggest issue in the history of Zombies maps, but a solid PAP camo is something fans remember for years after the release of new content. And although yes, that technically is true here, it's not for a good reason. It's just really bland and feels like it needs the vibrancy turned up. It's kind of wild to say that papping the wonder weapon somehow makes it look worse, and that should honestly never be the case. It's also not the only problem with the map, as I think we need to touch on the fact that in the more modern COD Zombies era, we really shouldn't be getting an experience with a complete lack of side content. This is unfortunately one of the biggest negatives about Mauer Der Toten and could well be the main thing holding it back from being a 10 out of 10 Zombies experience. Sure, you've got the Klaus upgrades, but that really feels like more of a major gameplay aspect than side content, to be honest. But I will say that the Disco Lockdown Easter egg is very cool and can secure players some genuinely good loot. However, outside of that, there just isn't really much to offer fans, and when you compare the minimal number of side quests to much more fleshed out zombies maps such as Terminus, the difference in quality is pretty drastic. But the most important question is, are these negatives really enough to stop Mauer Der Toten from being one of the greatest zombies experiences of all time, or at least the best map in Cold War? From the first minute of Mauer Der Toten, the quality is on display for all to see. Although featuring the vast majority of the more modern COD Zombies mechanics, it was clear for all to see that this was a map that really felt like a throwback to a time when Zombies was truly an unnerving and creepy experience. It possesses one of the most impressive atmospheres in a very long time, in combination with truly stunning visuals and a phenomenal map layout. The Easter egg and boss fight are definitely the strongest in Cold War, and the wonder weapon variants, although frustrating in some aspects, are hugely useful and look incredible. And let's not forget about one of the most important things on the entire map, everyone's favourite sarcastic AI companion. He could well be the best thing in the whole of Mauer Der Toten. Yes, there are certain drawbacks and minor negatives that I've covered, but they don't even come close to turning this experience into anything less than one of the strongest maps in modern times. It certainly wins the title of Best Cold War Zombies map, and although perhaps doesn't quite reach the dizzying heights of the greatest of all time, I think a lot of us can agree that if every COD Zombies map was as good as this, we'd all be pretty happy with the level of content Treyarch was dishing out to us.